Today on Pandavision, we're talking about episode 4 of season 3 of The Boys, Glorious 5-Year Plan. Welcome to Pandavision, the Stranded Panda podcast that we basically just treat as a drunk drawer for all the other shows that we don't have a universe to cover. My name's Matthew Carroll, and today, both Ashley and Matthew Fox were unable to join me, and I got so lucky with the wonderful J Scotty St Clair being willing to join in and take their place. From Animation Deliberation, J Scotty St Clair, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic. You're too kind. Thank you for having me back. The last time I was on Pandavision was for Peacemaker, so I feel like it's somewhat appropriate that I'm back for a tongue-in-cheek, very mature take on the superhero genre.
Yep. That is not a bad comparison there. Actually, yeah, so much of this. I mean, so much of the gore, so much of the dildo fights even, like it's all there. It's all right there. Laid out. It's very similar shows.
Oh yeah. Indeed.
Which I feel like we'd be remiss if we bury the lead and we just don't talk about the dildo fight.
The dildo vibrator fight, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't think I'd see those used as weapons, but leave it to the boys.
It's so funny. When we were talking about that episode of... There was an episode of Peacemaker. It's funny you mentioned that. There was an episode of Peacemaker where he is singing into the dildo.
Oh, right.
And then she approaches him from behind with knives. And I said on our coverage of that episode, I was like, I can't believe he didn't use the dildo to sword fight with. That would have been so perfect. And then we get this episode of The Boys, and it's exactly what I wanted. It was so good. Except for even more, because they use the personalities of the different 7 as the types, the silent black noir, silent screamer, and the I forget, they named a bunch of them. I'm sorry, we're on this rabbit hole. I'm good. This is gonna have the explicit tag for sure. Have you seen Watchmen, the series?
Yes, I have. I enjoyed it immensely.
That's another show where they did the superhero themed dildos. Or a dildo. Do you remember that? They did
refresh my memory for that one. It's been a while. It was
really weird. The lady who used to date Miss Dr. Manhattan had a replica.
Gene Smart's character.
Yes.
Yeah, Silk Spectre. Yeah.
She had a replica of his penis that was sold by
That's right.
If you look up, they had the sorry, this is going way too deep into Watchmen, but they had the schematics as part of the online content of the Dr. Manhattan replica dildo. And the company that made it was Owlman's company. I'm forgetting his superhero name, but like her boyfriend's company. He was like the tech guy. So her boyfriend's company made the dildo that her ex-boyfriend's penis that she was. It was really a weird circular thing. Anyway, I thought that was hilarious. But anyway, let's get into this episode of The Boys. Big things happened. Big things happened this episode. What'd you think?
I kind of feel like, the boys are back in town. This was the first episode where we had our collection of the members that make up the boys actually work together to pull off a mission. And by the end there, it doesn't seem like it's going to be very long-lived that they're working like a cohesive unit, but it just made me feel like we were right back to season 1 in a lot of ways, and it was really nice. We had Mother's Milk off doing his thing, doing his soul-searching. Huey was obviously working with the government, with Victoria Newman, but it felt really good to have our core team back together, and of course, Homelander delivered some jaw-dropping moments in spades.
Yeah. That's the stuff that, like, really got me was the Homelander finally making a move on Mr. Edgar.
Oh yeah.
And like really flipping the script on him and giving Victoria Newman V to go home and give to her daughter so that she could always be protected.
Yeah. That was a really tough scene to watch.
So dark. It's so dark. And we never saw the result. I don't know, but it looked like it was not maybe taking V is always that painful, but it looked like something was it looked like something terrifying was happening to her. Yeah. Oh man. And then she says, like, she always wants her daughter protected. And then Homelander, as he's leaving, is like, I'm glad you chose your own kind. That was smart. And then, of course, at the end of the episode, he's basically saying the opposite to Starlight as Alex is lying on the ground dead.
Yeah, that was incredibly gory as well. And I have to ask, did we ever get Alex Supersonic's power revealed to us? I found myself questioning, what was his superpower? I have no idea. I know he was in a boy band.
No clue. I'm guessing it had something to do with audio. So maybe he was like a screamer, or like they have the different superheroes. Kind of. I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example, but there's different superheroes.
Like Black Canary.
Yeah, that, or I don't know. But yeah, I don't think they ever even discussed it or needed to. He was just like a purely PR driven superhero that we never saw the superpower of, that like ended up dying to Homelander. So freaking dark, man.
Yeah. The show always, that's one of the most impressive things about the show to me. It toes this line. Like, I can't recommend the show for everybody because it's obviously not for everybody with the hyper reality, the hyper gore, but it does such this incredible job of balancing humor, dramatic moments, the relationships with those horrifying moments, with the gore. And I don't think there's many shows that can tout such an ability to balance these varying tones to such a successful level. Yeah,
we've talked about it a lot with like talking about Ragnarok, how I feel about it. Talking about Thor Ragnarok is a movie that I've talked a lot about, how it can be really funny, but then it always switches gears to the point that I feel like it loses some of the heart of it. Like, I don't feel the deaths and things, but this never feels that way. And it can be really, really raucous and funny. And I mean, we're watching, Kimiko is like close to death over there. Like, and that is so serious. And so like, she's not healing. I'm really worried about Kimiko, but at the same time, I can be thinking about how funny it is that Huey's suddenly naked and like, punching and apologizing to the guard he just punched through the chest, which is like just inherently Huey. That is so perfectly Huey. It's great.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible how endeared I've become to Kimiko, because obviously she's come such a long way since we saw her origin being this like animalistic, very violent, obviously a victim, but she's really been rehabilitated in a lot of ways, and she's calling Butcher out for his crap, and even getting Frenchie. I mean, it makes sense that Frenchie, being so close to her, would agree with her, but yeah, to see her get shot in the head in that the dildo sequence we already described was frightening enough. But yeah, to see her in this dire state, if they kill her off, I might have to, I jest, but I might have to rage quit the series. And then speaking to, just going from moments like that to the hilarity of Huey there, I kind of likened him to Naked Nightcrawler, and that's one of the great things about the show too, is it takes a realistic take on these powers. Like, if somebody was able to phase like that, they would not be taking their clothes with them. Yeah. Oh, and the other big thing that happened to him, apparently his arm healed because of the V. Right. That was huge. Yeah. That's big to know. You mentioned Kimiko and her being rehabbed. I don't know if it's rehabbed as much as it is we've just gotten to know her, because yes, she's been she's definitely been rehabbed, but like not from like a, I don't know that I feel like a lot of the ways we saw her early on, her sort of animalistic, way, was she just hadn't had like socialization and communication with anyone. And so like this like communication, like learning, it's almost like we see her differently because now we've gotten to know her through Frenchie's eyes. Yeah. And I just think that's it's really, really, really powerful to see, honestly, because I think she always had a good heart, and she just didn't. She was trying to fight against the people who were trying to control her, and so when she first met the boys, she's like fighting them because she thinks they're, just another group trying to control them. And then but the thing what's so sad about this. Shining Light, I think, was the name of the organization she was fighting against. She was enslaved by and then fighting against. Right. She says to Frenchie, "Shining Light, Butcher, they're the same." They're the same. And like, that's so terrible. He sold me, she says. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's incredibly poignant. And just talking about how far she's come. And I think you're right in a lot of what you said there. Maybe she hasn't changed as much as I kind of thought she did. and we're just getting to learn a little bit more about her. But going from how animalistic and withdrawn she was to like the fact that they can actually use her as the femme fatale and put her in a dress, and just kudos to Karen Fukunaga for being able to portray both that animalistic side, but then also she's stunning, and that little smile that she gives to everybody when they clearly can't communicate with her, but all she has to do is flash that little smile, and that's enough to get her through the doors. It's really, really well done. She's
just so cute. And she really wants to be liked, and she really wants to be normal. And like they had that moment earlier. Sorry, I'm about to bring up other shows that it reminds me of, and I'm not going to do that because it just is going to confuse things. Called Explain 15 Things before I get there. But let me I just love the idea that like all she really wants is freedom. And she wants to be able to sing, and she wants to be able to be who she is and express herself. And she's, actually, I think it kind of connects to what we were just talking about. She's this animalistic person in a cage because the only person who she could ever talk to was her brother. She lost him, right? Like, even before he died, she lost him. She was in this, when we meet her, she's in this cage by herself, not able to communicate. And now Frenchie is like learned to communicate with her, and that's her one person that she feels like has her back, is communicating with her. But then also, like, we have this vision of her wanting to sing. And to me, that's like self-expression. Like, I think she feels very blunted in her ability to communicate with the world. And even in that moment when she kills all those men with the dildos, and then she gets shot by that woman and then stands up and they're all terrified and blood everywhere. They're all on the floor. And she kind of smirks at them because she just wants to like communicate that she's not going to hurt them, but she can't. Like her whole character, she's mute, I guess. Have we ever heard her say anything?
I don't believe so. I think she's been mute the entire time, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if that was like a physical thing or a psychosomatic thing, or I don't know why she's mute. Like, I don't know that they've ever explored that, but like, it's interesting. It's perfectly balanced that this woman who can't communicate, has been prevented from communicating, has been separated from all the people she could communicate with, is now like it's like all she wants. All she wants is to be able to like communicate and express herself to more people, and for them to see her for who she is. Because I think she just is tired of being viewed as a monster, and a monster or a weapon or something to be used. She just wants to be a person and be cared for,
That's a really interesting parallel to the journey we've seen Homelander take, because I think he wants the exact same things, and he's experienced the exact same things, not being socialized and just being used as a weapon. And Stan Edgar, and I just got to say, Giancarlo Esposito brings such a pedigree and gravitas to the series. Like, he stands toe to toe with Anthony Starr in those scenes, and it's just so ripe with tension. And I was expecting Homelander to throw him out the window at any moment, but the fact that he acknowledges that Homelander looks to him as a father figure and he calls him a faulty product. Wow. It's just, can you give Homelander a worse insult? I don't think so.
No, that was so terrible. Oh, there's so many great lines in that scene. He has that line about, I thought you were going to try to compliment me or something like that. And he's like, why? Where would it go? But to the bottomless gaping pit that is the insecurity you call a soul? So fucking good. Oh my gosh. You are not a god. You're a simply bad product.
Whew. Yeah.
It's so good, man. It's so good.
It is. Yeah, it really is. Just thinking about how well Stan Edgar is able to hold his own against Homelander, it makes me think of the character of Ashley. And she just had one of the most hilarious through lines in this episode to me when Homelander's asked her, is your idiot brain being fucked by stupid? That's not a rhetorical question. Answer me. And then she uses it later on that employee of her own.
My idiot brain is not being fucked by stupid. It's so good, man. It's so good. Yeah, there's just all these power dynamics, and we've often talked about this show and how it's all about power. It's all about who has power over who and different kinds of power. And obviously, there's the superpowers, but then there's the corporate power, and then there's the power of PR. And it's like, then there's this sort of subversive power that the boys have where they're kind of moving against the grain and actually like changing things instead of just being controlled by these systems. So like there's all these sorts of power flowing back and forth. And I find that all very, very fascinating. But like the humanization of these characters is also like a thing that's really just a through line where it's like they want power, but they also just want human connection. And these soups, because they have power, it seems like it's even harder for them to find human connection. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like the people with the most power have the hardest time connecting. You know, like, and that's
totally.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of an interesting like dichotomy, and it makes you feel. It gives you this thing to feel for them about, even though you clearly know that they need to be taken down. People like Homelander,
right?
But he's so powerful, he can never like really be truly loved. You know what I mean? It's really, really hard for someone to just love him. Without fear. And I mean, he doesn't make it easy, but like,
no, he doesn't.
It's, you know, and then you've got characters like Starlight that are trying, they're somewhere in between on that spectrum. And they're like, even it just wants this human connection. She just wants to be with Huey, and even has tried to leave the Seven, but even Huey is using her for her power. You know what I mean? He tells her to stay in that episode 2 or 3. He says, nope, you got to stay, whatever it takes.
Right.
If that's what it takes, then you need to stay and endanger yourself. And she does. And so like even Huey, who she just wants to want her, she just wants him to want to be with her and have that connection. Right. He's still using her for her power. And that's just disgusting, because he's kind of our hero, you know, like he's supposed to be, but he's man, he took the V, man. What do you think? Would you take the V?
Would I take the V? Who, you know, put in that situation, knowing that it's only 24 hours and I just have to deal with some, you know, violent vomiting, I might be tempted to take the V. Maybe that shows the villain in me. But, I got to bring up, have you seen, I know we didn't want to bring up too many other like movies or TV shows, but have you seen
Oh, no, it's fine.
Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story?
Yes. You don't want any of this, Dewey. You don't want any of this. You don't want any of this V. It'll give you superpowers, Dewey.
Well, what are y'all doing? You don't want no part of this, Huey. It'll give you superpowers. It'll make you invulnerable. It'll give you the skills to vanquish your foes. I kind of think I want some of that.
You have the meme ability. You're the Photoshop guy. You really need to make a Walk Hard, the Huey Cox story poster, and it's just Homelander holding the thing, going, "You don't want any of this, Huey."
Yes. Yeah, we got to do it. That's good. I'll do it.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. But, you know, on a serious note, we really are seeing our hero, our one, like, shining light in this search, Huey. He's becoming more and more like Butcher.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he always has been. Always on this slide toward Butcherville. And then we're realizing how depraved Butcher is as he slides, and he just keeps sliding towards him. Even as he sees how horrible Butcher is, he keeps sliding toward him every time, and it's just it's hard to watch.
Yeah, it is hard to watch, and as hard as it is to watch, you know, a character that we actually like with Huey, you know, you brought up how all these characters are just like striving for some kind of connection, and there's a little bit of something there that brings at least some humanity to all of them. It's like, even the most despicable ones. Like I heard your conversation with last week with the Deep, and how he's just so stupid. He's trying so hard, but he's just too stupid. It's like even a character like him and A-Train, like I see the competitive siblings that they are, and they're willing to like throw each other under the bus just to get into Homelander's, you know, his approval. Like, as despicable as those actions are, I can understand where they're coming from, is in terms of just wanting to be safe and accepted.
Absolutely. They are. And I mean, I think, that's it's such a mind trip, because that's the thing, is it like seeking human connection, seeking acceptance, seeking approval, however you want to put it.
Sure. Yeah.
Doing that to the point that you cross a certain line then you sort of just become the villain too, just like seeking power. Like seeking power can turn you into a villain, but also seeking connection to the point that like it's no longer connection. You're just seeking approval of everyone despite like what it makes you into. And I think that A-Train and the Deep really epitomize that this episode, where they're just like vying for more of Homelander's affection. And I knew as soon as Alex opened his mouth and started talking to A-Train, I was like, oh no, man, there's no way. He doesn't believe that your outsider power is going to give him power. He wants the approval and the power that comes from the big man. And like, he's just going to turn around and give whatever intel you give him. That's just not who he is.
I just thought that moment played really well with that scene where we had the entire seven together, and the Deep had that moment where he was, spurred by his wife to speak up against A-Train when he was bringing up, I think it was Blue Hawk, the hero that's been targeting, unarmed black men. And the way he just seemed like he begrudgingly accepted Starlight's support, like in that public setting, he wanted to acknowledge it. But you could tell like it was almost like swallowing a pill for him, having to accept any kind of goodwill from her, knowing their history.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as soon as he knew Starlight was involved with another conspiracy, he just immediately looked for an opportunity to use it as ammunition against her.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. Do you think that she'll stop? Do you think that he says at the end, no more plotting and planning? Like he's trying to really get her under his heel. Do you think this killing Alex worked, and threatening to kill Huey? Do you think that worked?
I think it might work temporarily. There might be the next couple of episodes where we see her so fearful. I don't want to see that because she's such a strong character, but I think it would kind of be a disservice to just the brutality of Alex's death if she doesn't kind of go down at least a little bit of a similar path to Maeve for maybe a couple episodes.
That's a great parallel. We all saw Maeve, when this whole thing started. We saw Maeve in this sort of really bad position where you were like, why doesn't she just leave or get out of there or whatever? And like, she was too beaten down to like go up against Homelander, all of that in the beginning. And like, she's like an alcoholic. She's just, falling apart. And I feel like we saw that from the beginning. That's who she was. And now she's sort of come out of that. I feel like we're seeing that from the opposite side with Starlight, where she's like having to pretend to be his girlfriend. And then, like he said, that was how it was in the beginning. And then it became, whatever he wanted because he, had too much power in the situation,
Sure.
So yeah, it's tough, man. Seeing this character that seemed so, pure and like naive in the beginning. It was there for the right reasons, and we've seen nothing but her corruption through this system,
Yeah.
And will she be able to stand up in the end and stand and fight with Maeve, or is she just going to be like beaten down to where she becomes an A-Train or a Deep,
Ooh.
That would be terrible. That would be so terrible.
Would be awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be incredibly awful. Now, she says in that moment, we need 4 or 5 more. But like, if you get, Huey, and if you give the boys V or whatever, as they did, and like, who knows, maybe you could get there, Yeah. They got it.
I mean, is it really the boys though? If Homelander's taken out, if he's not in the pictures, it's still the same show.
No, probably not. Well, yeah probably not. But who knows what would take his place, or like it could definitely be an interesting exploration of after he's taken down, or if he's taken down, or if he's killed, who does he become? If he's depowered, like all that stuff. Like, what if we find out he gets rid of all his powers? They somehow get rid of his powers, and I would love to see the exploration of like, can he find human connection and happiness after the powers are gone? Like, were the powers the thing keeping him from true like, what if he ends up being the depowered guy, and then 3 seasons later, the boys have been totally corrupted. Then they go to find Homelander, and he's like living on a farm with a happy little family, and he's like, yeah, I finally found peace. And you're just like, what the hell, show?
Yeah, that would be a fascinating place to take the show.
But that's like, I can kind of see it with all these themes they're playing with like,
yeah,
the idea that power corrupts. That's tale as old as time. And, power not only corrupts, but it also makes you a product for people. And that's like, this show is sort of an exploration of how does power corrupt, and if it's hard to stay naive and pure when everyone around you only wants to use you.
Certainly. Yeah. It's like with that constant struggle to maintain the power, it does tie right back into what we've been talking about this entire time. You kind of need the acceptance of the people in order to maintain that power, because once you lose that acceptance, that's when the coups happen, and it doesn't matter how powerful you are, enough people can eventually take you down.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we're winding down, there's a few things I feel like we have to bring up, and I feel like it was where you were headed towards, but before we talk about Superboy, I just got to talk about Jamie the super hamster.
Yes, please let Jamie stick around. I really hope that he's in the van with them. I saw him he flew and went in that guy's eye, and Frenchie was being friendly to him. What if Frenchie's just the poorly treated soup whisperer, and Frenchie ends up with the girlfriend of Kamiko and a gerbil on his shoulder, a hamster on his shoulder.
Oh man.
Sorry, I like to speculate and go weird directions, but I really wanted that hamster to join them in the van and be like he's their little friend. I don't know. It'd be great.
Yeah. I can dig it.
Maybe it's because I've been watching too much Jurassic Park, and I've just been rooting for the Raptors to love Chris Pratt. I just want them to love Chris Pratt.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. I loved it. I loved it so much. What about the energy drink commercial? Is spoofing the Kendall Jenner Pepsi commercial.
Oh, see, I haven't seen the Kendall Jenner Pepsi commercial, so that one was lost on me.
Oh, really? Oh, it was a huge story in politics and media. It was a couple years ago.
Okay.
Kendall Jenner did this very ill-advised commercial where it was in the middle of the Black Lives Matter protests and all these clashes with police, right? All this stuff going on, all this police violence against protesters and all this stuff. And they did a commercial where it started out as that. These protests in the street, protesters and cops are getting ready to clash. And Kendall Jenner steps in the way and hands him a Pepsi, hands one of the police a Pepsi. And they drinks the Pepsi, and then they're smiling and everyone's happy together. It was supposed to be I don't even know what they're trying to say. That is so stupid. And that's what this was spoofing. And it wasn't much less stupid than anything else in this world of the boys has done. It's such a bad ad. And this was a great spoof of it.
Well, I feel a little ignorant for not being aware of that. But when it comes to the Kardashians, I tend to be a little bit of the ostrich strategy. I just stick my head in the dirt and pretend they don't exist. So.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, as far as the commercial played in the show, it was a great moment, and I think that's another area where the show really succeeds. I think it's able to toe this political line and bring up these political issues and social issues, but no one's safe. It's kind of like Family Guy or South Park. They will make fun of both sides and the ridiculousness and hypocrisy of both sides. So it just makes it appeal to the common person a little bit more, I believe. Yeah,
I think that's true. I definitely think that's true. It's just the idea that the PR, the politics of it all just isn't what's really happening. And I think it's one of the coolest things about the show in a lot of ways, it is about this corporate culture and the PR culture and how it interacts, and setting a superhero show that takes on those types of issues instead of, just being about, whatever, let's beat up the bad guys. It's such a fun thing.
Yeah, it makes me think of Ashley again when she's talking to A-Train and she's like, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter is my main hashtag on all my social media.
Favorite hashtag.
It's you don't get it at all.
Nope, don't get it. So a couple things I liked in this episode, I wanted to throw out too. Do they always do the street art the way they did this episode? Did you catch all those? There was this really long sequence where they cut to, I don't know if they were going to a certain neighborhood or whatever, but like they're cutting around and they're just showing the different superheroes in street art and how the common like street artists might like portray them, and they're all horrifying and they're all scary. And so it's interesting to see that like some of these like lower income level like street artist types are are seeing the boys the way we see them, you know?
Yeah, that sequence definitely stuck out to me. I don't think we've seen anything quite like that in any of the previous episodes or previous seasons. And the one that kind of resonated with me the most is where you saw they made whichever superhero kind of look like a Titan, and they were picking someone up and just like going to drop them in their mouth. And as a fan of animated content, it just really reminded me of Attack on Titan.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
I've seen it, but I don't know it well.
Okay.
Interesting. All right. Just another laugh line I really liked was when MM is walking through the group of Russians and he keeps taking them out one by one.
Yes.
And he says, "Red Dawn, motherfucker." And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. Russians versus America, get it. And then a few minutes later, he takes another guy out and says, "Rocky IV, motherfucker."
Yeah. That was great.
I just love it. The idea that MM, you know, his age and distance from the conflict of Russia versus America, or like the Cold War, is kind of a distant thing he's only encountered through media. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he was probably not even born around the real like height of the Cold War. So it's like, you think about like MM is like, yeah, I know Russian versus America, Rocky IV, right?
Do you think
I guess the 80s.
I was going to say he was probably a teenager during the height of it, because we even saw like in the opening sequence where they had that variety show where Soulja Boy showed up and sang the Blondie song.
That's true. He did remember that. Yeah, I guess I keep thinking like this because it's 40. I mean, you know, the 80s was 40 years ago now. I'm trying to decide how old. I was thinking he was late 30s, but I guess he could early 40s.
Put him in his early 40s.
Okay, then yeah, maybe early teens. Then maybe that was around the time of his dad's death. Yeah, maybe you're right. But I still just think that's really funny, the way that like he thinks about Russia versus America as immediately the pop culture reference, as opposed to, you know, he's not like saying anything about the Cold War. He's saying like Rocky IV and Red Dawn. It's so good.
For sure.
It's so good.
It was a great reference. Yeah.
Oh man. And last thing I have in my notes, I should have brought this up earlier, but when it's revealed that Huey has been a soup, and they all, you know, we were talking about the descent of Huey to become more and more like Butcher. And when he shows that he's a soup and they're all kind of walking out and they're all like looking at them, they look disappointed with Huey. Like they don't really look at Butcher. They're like, of course Butcher would do this. They look like they kind of look surprised for sure when Butcher like starts lasering eyeing people and surviving bullets. But when they look at Huey, there's a lot of like disappointment and disgust on their face, and he's just like, we know Butcher, he would surely pull this shit, but like we expect a little better from Huey, and he is just doing the same shit. That's the way I saw their faces anyway.
No, I think you're completely right. I think it was Mother's Milk and Kimiko in particular kind of had this disgusted and disappointed look. Well, maybe not Kimiko, because she was kind of taken out at that point.
Well, no, she says, you would do this to yourself on purpose?
That's right. Yeah. But it just makes me think of what Mother's Milk told Butcher. He's like, you installed me as the leader of this team because you're the one that has to go to the places that no one else will. But now you've broken even that. Like, the team has become so broken by what you've done. And I'm actually really concerned for Huey, because when the last time we saw him, I think he had his arm outside the van, kind of feeling the wind on his arm, and he has this like look of kind of like wild excitement, like he definitely wants some more Compound V, and it's the first time he's got a taste of this power.
It looks like there was like a real addiction vibe there.
Yeah,
it reminded me of every, I don't know, just like heroin movie I've seen. Like he's just like the world is falling down around you, and you're just looking at what you can put in your veins next. You know, like there was some real problem. There's a real problem brewing with Huey there. We got a few comments from the live chat. The Beast 58 S03E04 says, love the street art. It helps with the world building. A lot of the Homelander art too. All of it. Yeah, I agree. The Homelander stuff was badass and really great for world building.
Definitely.
They say this episode really shows how the boys are hitting rock bottom and angry with each other. I'm excited to see them come back together. Oh, I hope they do. I am really worried. And I said it last week. I don't know if you heard this episode yet, but or if you will, but I mentioned last week that I'm worried about Frenchie. I'm worried about Frenchie being a betrayer.
Ooh.
For a number of like little cues they've given. They've talked about how he had one master and was handed over to another, and he always just comes healing to his master. Just depends on who has control of his leash or whatever. And like we were also talking about how Edgar has control of everything that's going on. Edgar's been in control of Vought, but he also was in control of this other group. And he also, it just feels like Edgar is kind of like master puppeting everything. And we were like, except the boys. The boys are their own thing. And then I started thinking about it like, but what if they're not? Like, what if he's also got his fingers in that pie? And like, I'm wondering if it's a possibility that Frenchie, and then after this episode, when they're talking about being bought and sold, and like he's talking about leaving and talking to Kimiko, it got me thinking like even more. I was just like, I just don't know. I just don't know if Frenchie's on the level. I'm just not sure. And
if that is the case, do you think it's been like a long con? Like he's been in Edgar's pocket since the beginning?
I don't know.
A decision he's made recently?
I don't remember why he joined. Like we all know why we all know why Huey's there, we all know why Butcher's there. And I think they mention at some point that Frenchie also has some sort of tragedy in his past, like we've all lost something to superheroes. I want to say that's the case, like in season 1, but we've never got it like laid out for us. And I just think if there's a betrayer among those 4, like or 5 really, with Kimiko and 6 with Starlight, it just seems like it might be Frenchie, and I just don't know, man. I just don't know.
Yeah. I think at all the points you laid out, like if it went that way, I wouldn't be completely shocked, but I really just hope it doesn't go that way.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I think it's terrible. Yeah. I'm sad that I had the idea, but it started to I started to see it, and so have to bring it up in case it happens. I got to make the call.
Yeah. I feel like we should talk about Soldier Boy at least a little bit. We didn't get a ton of time with him, but real quickly before that, one thing I just wanted to throw in there is, as a fellow doodler myself, like anytime something important's been going on in my life and I need to focus, I find myself just kind of going and doodling and making little cartoons. Getting Black Noir back and finding out that he likes to doodle as well just really struck a chord with me, because I think the last time we heard about Black Noir outside of like the flashbacks is that he was in a vegetative state. So I don't know if they have somebody just wearing the costume and filling in for him, and maybe that was what they were trying to broadcast there. But either way, I thought it was just an interesting character beat. Yeah,
absolutely. It's really exciting to see what this. I don't know this character. I don't know the character or the actor really. Jensen Ackles or whatever. So I'm excited to see like who he is. And do you think he's been taken over by the like some sort of Russian programming, or was he just being Soldier Boy and like wandering off?
Well, given the fact that the little bit we know about him is that he had at least some connection to Stormfront.
Oh, did he?
I believe so. I believe they in season 2 they discussed the shared history that they had together. If I'm not mistaken, I think serving in World War II together. Maybe he was the first subject of Compound V that was maybe willing or what have you. But my prediction is that he learned about the cryogenic freezing process, and just like out of a moment of vanity, he agreed to be frozen just to prolong his life. But I'm not too sure. You really didn't get too much of him.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I didn't remember. Because I thought the idea, and I'm a little blurry on last season, but I thought the idea was that he fought in World War II for America, and that she fought for the Nazis was the thing that I thought. I thought that's what happened. Or was
it could be that as well. I might be fuzzy as well.
Yeah, I'm not. Honestly, I don't fully remember if he fought in World War II. I might be conflating things I've heard and how he's such a Captain America analog that I'm like, yeah, exactly. Surely that's what they're doing here, right? but I'm not totally sure. All right, well, we'll find out. We'll look into it a little bit. I'm sure we'll get some feedback. If you want to send in feedback we'll do a feedback episode if we get a few emails. So strandedpandanetwork@gmail.com, and we'll find your feedback and talk to you. All right, guys. Thank you, J Scotty, for being here. Tell us about Animation Deliberation, bud.
Yeah, Animation Deliberation is the podcast on the Stranded Panda Podcast Network that takes action animation and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. And it's a really exciting time for the show. We just recorded our coverage for the finale of Young Justice Season 4, Young Justice Phantoms. And in addition to that, we've had some really exciting interviews with industry professionals. And we just learned about the next one that we're going to be doing. That'll be on Tuesday, June 21st, with award-winning film composer and instrumentalist Maxwell. I have not learned how to pronounce his last name yet, but hopefully I get this right. Kazerman, but he has participated in films such as the Bob's Burgers movie, as well as Sonic the Hedgehog, and he's even lent his musical talents to shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well as The Mandalorian. So definitely going to be excited to chat with him a little bit.
Oh, that's
Send in your feedback for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please. And what's the email for them to send in their feedback?
Yeah, Animation Deliberation Podcast @gmail.com, or if you're a member of the Stranded Panda chat, you can tag myself, Zuhair Ali, or Andrew Rogers. We're the hosts of that show. Just tag us with your feedback and we'll be sure to include it.
Sweet, man. Sweet. Well, yeah, you guys run a great show over there, and it's so cool that you're getting all these interviews and stuff. I love it. Love it. All right, man. We'll be back soon, guys. We'll have another episode of the Orville this week and another episode of The Boys next week, and we'll send out an email. If you are not on the email list, go to strandedpanda.com, sign up on the email list, and we'll send you, we send an email out every week with the live event schedule, and we try to do a live watch and a live podcast whenever we can. So see you guys then. Peace.
Have a diabolical day.
Nice. Thank you for listening to PandaVision. We are a member of the Stranded Panda Network. For all of our podcasts and other creative geeky projects, check out strandedpanda.com.